So all to say, like, as people get traction and grow, they're like, oh, crud, I don't really understand business, or I don't understand business well enough. And I don't understand finances and P&Ls and budgeting. And how do I build a team if that's ever right for the right person? How do I actually do business strategy? How do I develop my offers? All of these sorts of things that go into growing up as a business, such that the business is sustainable. I think we all know kind of the general national statistics, and they're remarkably consistent year over year as reported by Forbes and Inc. and all the big boys in media, which is, that after 5 years, half of small businesses die, right? Like they're not around anymore.
I teased it a little bit, but there was a change, and you've been the CEO of SPI for several years now. I would say, to your credit, a little bit behind the scenes, like a little bit like I know who Matt Garland was. I know the title and the name. Felt like everyone would know, Pat Flynn. And so you've done a really masterful job, I feel like, of adding insane value to all these companies you're involved with without needing the spotlight or without needing that big like personal brand. But that's even evolved a little bit lately, where your role at SPI has changed. So do you want to just talk a little bit about what's changed and where you see Matt Gartland going, I guess, in the near future, not only with SPI, but sort of in a broader sense? Because I'd love to hear that in the sense of like what drives you and what motivates you, because you're making a shift here. And I think it's pretty significant.
Yeah. Well, that's, again, a very, very kind tee up there. I'm thrilled that I have passed the torch in terms of the head job, the CEO job, to a really gifted, leader and operator in his own regard, and a very experienced team creator. And that's Caleb Wojcik. He's been a close friend of mine for a while, as Pat's also. He was on a short list of folks that we kind of screened for as a part of a really deliberate succession planning process. Not to get all like nerdy and wonky about that stuff, but the point of reference there is just like, this wasn't rushed. This was very deliberate. And the process actually started in January. Pat and I aligning on this. It was my idea and my call, and I'll tell that part of the story in just a moment. But to give Caleb credit, again, just for another moment, he emerged as the front runner through this process. He had, certain relationships with our team members, or some of them, right? Just because he's been such a friend of SPI for so long. So that was an added boost, for him. Because when you get into team building, and not everyone does, but, in terms of your audience being a bit more advanced in their career, and they might, have teams to start building teams, that level, like being a culture keeper, with your team and embodying those characteristics and behavior patterns. And just, it ultimately trust, I guess, at the end of the day also was critical. So Caleb emerged as that guy. We essentially went through a 9-month then process where then at the end of Q3, which was just a couple of weeks ago, we were able to publicly announce that, and he took over officially. He joined the team, again, per our plan and by design at the start of Q2 as sort of effectively like my number 2, right? To just get his feet inside the company, get him a little more inside access to the operation and, where we're going. So that's that, and couldn't again be more excited and grateful that Caleb took on the job. I am moving into a more limited role, admittedly, but still very excited and grateful to be a part of SPI now as president. What that role means is it gives me more focus on strategic partnerships and essentially like playing almost an ambassador role within the market. Now, I was already doing that or attempting to, right? As CEO, a good CEO does.
But it was one of the many hats you're trying to wear. And now you get to be more focused on that. Yeah.
Right. And certainly Pat does too. So it's not like, relationship building is isolated to just me, but it gives me almost singular focus, in that way to, have conversations like this one, right? And build relationships with great people like you and others at Crop Plus Commerce to, and this even has a sort of an overlay with the advisory work, with tech companies, right? And look for partnership opportunities in many different sizes. I've done a lot of deal making, just another part of my background. And I think as a good business owner, especially for those that are, growing up and doing well and, their business is starting to take off, like you got to learn the ropes of deal making, like actual like contract negotiation, et cetera, right? And partnership forging. So that's where I get to have a focus. But because it's a more limited role, it then creates more time and space for me to do, some great work still in service of the broader idea, just in the marketplace that is outside the box of SPI, so to speak. Still care immensely. I've never slowed down. If anything, I care more than ever about small business, and especially online, small business and solopreneurs in different market segments, and not just say the creator economy. A great example are consumer packaged good startup founders, in the CPG industry. My good friend Jason Pfeiffer and I have partnered up with 3 CPG pros to create a new community that is elevated. It's more upmarket, and it's focused on the needs and growing pains of CPG companies, called CPG Fast Track. That's also on Circle. That's also something of an accelerator. It's not for beginners. It is for established CPG companies, but kind of fits into my larger purpose. Kind of holistically, and this very much, includes SPI. And this has been true for such a long time, which is like my ultimate, and this is deeply personal, motivation for me is to protect founders and operators from themselves. Because it's hard, it's lonely, it's difficult. So many people these days are moving into solopreneurship in any market, whether it's creator and personal brand, or CPG, or coaching and consulting, or any of these variants. They're moving into these space not usually with a deep business background. They're moving into that because they have an addressable skill, or they have a lot of charisma and storytelling ability, and that's fantastic. Sometimes even like Pat, in his early days, he moved into it out of necessity, right? He lost his job. So all to say, as people get traction and grow, they're like, oh, crud, I don't really understand business, or I don't understand business well enough, and I don't understand finances and P&Ls and budgeting, and how do I build a team, if that's ever right for the right person? How do I actually do business strategy? How do I develop my offers? All of these sorts of things that go into growing up as a business, such that the business is sustainable. I think we all know kind of the general national statistics, and they're remarkably consistent year over year, as reported by Forbes and Inc. and all the big boys in media, which is, that after 5 years, half of small businesses die, right? They're not around anymore, right? So part of that mission statement for me, in terms of, supporting and enabling and protecting, founders and entrepreneurs from themselves, is that notion where, how can I plug myself into through partnerships, through other community groups, through other, forms of value delivery, right? That includes SPI, but now gives me an opportunity to expand my surface area of impact. So that's kind of, that. And that's how it unites together kind of everything. And I'll kind of shut up after this. Sorry to ramble, but
that's great.
The advisory work, the work I'm now doing with Jason Pfeiffer, I've become good friends with Justin Welsh, another good example, just remarkably talented, very value-oriented guy, especially on LinkedIn. We're scheming some future stuff. It gives me an opportunity and space to kind of build out a broader kind of ecosystem that still serves and supports SPI very much.